Hey guys, welcome back to Reticulous Radio. We are here live with Myke Clarkson tonight, and he's done a bit of everything. If you want to talk about, I guess let's start with your intro into like reptiles and herping.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I guess intro. Do you mean like how I got into it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll give you the comical version because it's the only version I know how to give, and that is I grew up in the Mojave Desert, which when most people picture California, they're picturing the wrong place. Like a lot of California, when you go east, looks like Arizona or Nevada. Actually, it looks just like Nevada because the Great Basin Desert goes through Oregon all the way up into Idaho. I actually just drove to Boise, and I was like, wow, this just doesn't change for hours. And in the Mojave Desert, there's really only a few things to do, especially back then. Like our first fence around my family's house went up to keep coyotes away. Not a whole lot going on. You could either get into ATVs, and I didn't really like the Fox and Affliction shirts, and I couldn't afford them. Oh, there you go. Automated room. So things are turning off. I got to turn them back on. And the other recreation there is meth. And I like my teeth. So really, there's two options that ruined your teeth. Off-roading where you slam into rocks, or meth and they just fall out. I didn't like either of those. I wanted to keep my teeth.
Sounds a lot like Michigan in some areas.
Right? It's like, okay. And that's a joking version. But, I caught lizards as a kid and then graduated up to snakes. And I was probably 6 or 7 when I started having little aquariums for snakes where my parents would let me catch and release them. Now, no, you're not supposed to do that. But as a 6-year-old, didn't know any better. And luckily, I just had parents that really fostered it. They found I didn't like reading at all. But if they took me to the library, that's how old I am, and you went to the card system, I'd read the reptile books week after week after week and read them cover to cover. We're talking the Audubon Society Guide to Reptiles in North America and all those things. And once I realized that was a way to get me to want to learn, they just fostered it. And my bedroom growing up could fit 20 aquariums, but they maxed me out at 10 snakes. I had to raise my own mice and rats, so it didn't cost too much. And I think it was just growing up in an area where there were wild reptiles. And I don't know, I think there's something in, you always say nature versus nurture, right? And yeah. I was a kid who loved dinosaurs. To this day, Jurassic Park, top 5 movies of all time for me. And I always thought it was kind of nurture. My parents bought me a dinosaur toy on accident. Whoops, now I see a lizard. Whoops, now I have snakes, right? But my niece is actually really into animals, and my brother pretty much hates animals. Like, I don't want to put it that way, but he's not a fan. Like, anything from an aphid up scares him crazily. But now here, his first daughter loves animals and is always wanting to talk to me about animals, and it makes me think, okay, maybe there's some nature in it, and it's a mix of both. That was a really bad answer, but that's a short version. Ever since I was a little kid, catching lizards, and then just graduated from there. And then when I was probably 19, I moved out early, and I got my own place, and I no longer had the 10 snake limit, so I went crazy. And then I had an opportunity to work on some television stuff on the side while still taking classes in college, and my job pretty much afforded me the opportunity to start traveling. I mean, I'd been to a few places, Mexico, Canada, Costa Rica, but not that much. And with that opportunity, I got the travel bug. And so the field herping really took off as my job started taking me places. And I'd go to South Africa for work, and then I'd go, I've got to come back here to herp. Because, when you're working TV, you're often doing 12, 13, 14 hours a day, sometimes up to 16 hours a day. Like on Shark Weeks, you're working 2 weeks straight without a day off. And when you get off that boat with that choppy water, you have no energy to herp. You're just like, I'm dead. If you go out at all, it's like for part of one day, and you're like herping like this. Like, I remember I was in the Bahamas with Devin Massane, and we're making a Shark Week there. And we're both like, dude, we're on Bimini Island. If we don't look for a Bimini boa on Bimini Island, we're going to hate ourselves for this. We have to do it. So we went out for maybe an hour by this area called the Fountain of Youth, where Bimini boas are known from. And we're looking around, and all of a sudden Devin goes, let's check this house. I'm like, dude, what house? I look, and it's a palm tree stump that he was looking at because we're that tired. And now, if there was venomous snakes on the island, I'm going to say we should have gone out, but there was nothing that can hurt you there. So
right.
No harm. But obviously, if we're mistaking palm trees for houses, we're not going to find any snakes that night. So we called it. But yeah, I mean, that's really, I think, The field herping, I grew up field herping from a young age. I grew up in the Mojave Desert. I had 8 rosy boa nights back then, which I've never been able to have in the high desert again because it's developed so much. And really, my job afforded me to make that international. I've got 4 snakes left to find in the state of California, field herping wise. And I'm probably going to knock that out in the next 2 years just because why not? Like, I'm not usually a list checker, but I'm so close to it. It's my home state. So I might do that. But yeah, field herping has just always been a love and passion of mine. I think herp keeping was also kind of an equal, and they're parallel. And usually get people that are strong field herpers or keepers, and I'm kind of right down the middle because I enjoy both. So that's a short, long. That's a terrible answer. We're moving on.
Yeah, I feel you. No, I definitely understand that because I started. I guess I started keeping first because same story. My mom always by the time I could read, my mom had me Reptiles magazines with. I was getting Reptiles magazines in the mail monthly, and then same thing because we didn't have internet, library, books, and just kind of went from there. He bought me an alligator at one point when I was in kindergarten. So it didn't last too long. She ended up giving it back to the guy who sold it to her. But it's just always interested me. Then we moved out to the woods, and I was always field herping,
Yeah. That was the great thing about living in the high desert. I mean, I only moved away from the high desert 10 years ago, so my whole life was out there. It was just a 3-hour commute to Los Angeles for work, and that was just got old really fast. Like 3 hours each way every day for 3 years. You're talking 6 hours a day in the car, and oftentimes I'd be working 6-day shifts. So I had to move because of that. But when I did live out there, it was great because we had a good-sized house with a guest bedroom, and people would come out to field.
Cutting out.
You got me? So yeah, I mean, it was like I'd go out every night during season.
Kind of.
Are you losing me? Here.
A little bit here and there. It's weird.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I can move locations. I'll take the laptop with. My Scottish apple juice will have to stay here.
Yeah.
1 second. Sorry. Technical difficulty.
Oh, you're good.
I apologize.
Yeah, okay.
Everyone being on quarantine has
Wi-Fi. No, Wi-Fi is. It's been like this for months, man. Like every guest has been having Wi-Fi issues, and I'm like, man.
Okay.
It happens though.
No worries. Sorry about this.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. Different scenery. Looks less like a 70s police station.
So what I guess what species do you keep now? That's what I want to touch on because you keep some rather unique species that a lot of people are working with, and I'm rather surprised. I mean, mind you, they do.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about
the natural progression most people did. You start with the basic stuff, your corn snakes and your king snakes, and then you graduate to bigger. Oh. And I used to have a big dwarf retic group and had that for a while. But what really fascinated me was breaking new ground. The stuff that not a lot of people worked with. So I did a lot of African colubrids, a lot of Asian colubrids. I believe I was the first person to breed Tula micterizans, the Malaysian dwarf vine snake, for several years.
What was that? You cut out at that.
Tula micterizans, I used to breed those, which are the Malaysian dwarf vine snakes, just more manageable than your Persina, which is what most people get for vine snakes. They get Tula Persina. But those things get like 6 feet long, and most people are not equipped to give them enough room to actually have good full lives. Micterizans, on the other hand, only gets 3 feet, much skinnier, much smaller, more manageable. So I said, you know what, let's give people an alternative to start breeding micterizans. I did that for a while. I bred a lot of different Semophis that people hadn't bred before. And just random stuff, like the Telescopus semi-annulatus from South Africa. Great, cool little snake, awesome snakes. No one was breeding them. Why not? They're not that hard to breed. So I'd often just look for that kind of gray space where people weren't working in. And also because, I haven't bred for profit for probably 12 years now. I mean, I used to make a decent change off it when, you know, I had a larger collection. But I've gotten now to where it's just stuff that I'm passionate about and excited about. So I work with Mehelya, which have changed names about 5 times in the last few years. They were Goniatophis, and now there's a new name that is slipping me right now. But Mehelya is an awesome name, so I kind of like just calling them that. Which ironically are called file snakes, and I say ironically, the thing I work the most with is Acrochordus, which also called file snakes. Is why common names kind of suck. I mean, in South Africa, they have garter snakes, which are lapids. Our garter snakes here, not a lapids. Bad thing to confuse. So, yeah, I mainly have Mehelya. I've got Mehelya capensis breeding this year, Chandleri, which was used to be called Unicolor, Poensis. I've got a few Boega, Nigroceps that are always breeding, and honestly, those are just remnants. It was the things I didn't want to get rid of when I moved, but the Acrochords and the Homalopsis are my favorite, the full aquatics. And that's because so few people have worked with them, and they're really fascinating to watch. You know, you talk about biomes and bioactive enclosures. Every fish tank is a bioactive enclosure. If it's not, it dies. It becomes putrid. Everything dies. It has to be bioactive to work. But not only that, but your best vivarium, like I've got a vivarium with Amazon tree boas, and I'm sure people crucify me, but it's actually totally fine. Red-eyed tree frog and Tellus whip scorpion. And they never mess with the frog. The frog jumps on them all the time. I used to have a similar enclosure before. And that's about as complex as that vivarium can get before you start having animals having bad interactions. That's what you don't want. You don't want your Amazon tree boa. You don't want your pets eating each other, right? That's the moral of the story. No one ever wants their pets eating each other, unless you're a psychopath. And if you're a psychopath, well, then I can't help you. But in general, people don't want their pets eating each other. The great thing about aquatic snakes is you can have a multi-layer environment with all these different animals that actually live peacefully together. So with my Acrochords, I originally had 3 species of shrimp breeding, 4 species, 3 species of crab, a variety of brackish fish they weren't interested in, including monos and night gobies and bumblebee gobies, and then snails. The snails got out of control. So I added 2 pufferfish, which if pufferfish are kept in freshwater long enough, they lose all toxicity, so no danger to the snakes. And oddly enough, the snakes know not to eat them. They've been in there for 2 years, and they've never touched the pufferfish, which is interesting because they eat everything. But unfortunately, the pufferfish decided to dismember all the crabs and all the shrimp. So I don't have that. But in the Homalopsis tank, I have like 5 species of crabs. I have freshwater isopods, which are kind of cool. I've got shrimp. And you just get like all this different life happening at once, where at any point, if the snakes aren't out eating, you could watch a shrimp eating or a crab fighting, or because crabs are jerks, or fish breeding. Like there's so much going on that at any point, it's like a glimpse of nature. And that's, I think, one of the things that really drew me to fully aquatics. That, and I don't know if you can tell from behind me, but I'm mildly obsessed with sea snakes. Oh yeah, also my shirt. And Acrochordus granulatus do occur.
And your tattoos.
yeah. And actually my saltwater aquarium. So like the ocean's always fascinating me. I'm also a scuba diver. So I think part of it is like, it's kind of the best of both worlds. So yeah, I do a lot with Acrochordus granulatus. Another interesting thing is I have 2 localities of Acrochordus granulatus. I have Javinicus and Solomon Islands. And originally I want to put those in 2 tanks, but I'm worried that my floors in my apartment can handle that much water because I already have 5 aquariums. So I was like, oh, well, they'll have to be together. Hopefully they don't make mutts. I catch them breeding maybe every 4 or 5 days. Like they like to breed. They're the dolphins of the snake world. There's a little trick to set them off, and that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. But once you learn that trick, they'll breed nonstop. I have never witnessed the Solomon Islands pairing to the Javinicus or the Javinicus pairing to the Solomon Islands. They only mate within their same locality, which is interesting because I spoke to some people in the Solomon Islands, and they're like, look, none of the other Homalopsidae, none of the other aquatic snakes occur down there. There's a huge gap between them and the rest of the range. We think it's a subspecies. And I'm like, the species ranges from Australia to India. What are the chances that Solomon Islands is suddenly a subspecies when none of the rest is? But now witnessing them always choosing their same locality makes me go, maybe this is a new species that isn't described. So anyways, sidetrack, but kind of cool.
No, that's completely fine, man. So yeah, my buddy has, I think, close to 2,000 gallons of water think a little bit more in his basement. One being like a full 1,000-gallon aquarium with a big red-tailed cat and
Nice.
some others. But
yeah, I've got two 150s, one 100, 120, and one 100. Or so two 100s, two 150s, and 120. I need to actually upgrade one of them to like a 400 soon, but it's all a matter of like space. You know, if I had more room, I'd probably, you know, like the Acrochordus granulatus tank that I shared the other day with the thunder lightning effects and all that, and the sound bar, and that one's got a UV sterilizer and a pump filter and all this other stuff added to it. The temperature of the tank goes to my phone, but it also has a thermostat on it, so you really kind of a moot point. That tank I wish was like 3 times the size, and it's plenty big for the snakes, but the more room you have, the more you can do. Like I would love to have a rain chamber when the thunder lightning goes off, fresh water tops off, but then you need
Yeah, exactly.
And I always tell people, like, make your enclosures as much room as you have, because the more room you give the animals, the more you can do with the setup, and the more the animals will do. You'll see them engaging in behavior that you wouldn't catch in a small enclosure because they don't have the option, right? So like my boyga, they've got a like 5 foot tall by 6 foot long run, and you know they'll be up in the trees, but they'll be down, and they've got room to move around, so they do move around. They're more fun to observe. Like, why not? If you have the space, go for it, and you won't regret
it. Exactly. My long-term goal for I have 2 retics right now. A big female mainland. She's going on a few years old, and she's already 12 feet. And I have her in your, stereotypical 6x3x2, But I'm trying to, when I have the room, I want to give her a really big, like what you would see someone keep a large iguana in, like by 3, or something big that will give her, more climbing room and everything. Because, despite popular belief in keeping, retics are semi-arboreal, and they really do enjoy climbing.
I've actually found a large one in a tree. In Bali, I found a large one in a tree, and it was a good size retic. I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know that size would still go in trees." But it was just happy in a big tree, and you're sitting here going, "Okay." I mean, I found them in streams, swimming. So obviously, lots of water, they'll use it. I have found them in a hole, like a big enough hole you could crawl into, and that was a shelter. So it's like in the whole situation, okay, that's where you could justify rack, right? Because that's their home. But they don't stay there all the time. Because I've seen them on the wall in Cambodia.
I'm gonna pause you. I'm gonna pause you right there. If anyone wants to see that video where he's in the hole with the retic, you guys need to go over to YouTube and check out Zilla's series Beyond the Glass. It is there. You guys can see it. You can watch him climb in that hole, and it's really cool video.
And that episode has the Homalopsis too.
All right, keep going.
No, that episode has the Homalopsis buctata.
Yeah, it does.
Reading, so yeah. But I mean, that was like the one example where I found in the hole. Cambodia stretched all the way out. Bali in a tree. Bali in a creek. Like, yeah, sometimes they'll be in a tiny hole if they're sleeping. But here's a funny current analogy.
Right.
Quarantine sucks. Right? It's not fun. No one loves it. It's necessary, but no one likes it. Don't keep your pets in quarantine just because you can stay in one place for the rest of your life. Like, we all could stay in quarantine permanently, but no one's going to raise their hand and say, yes, please, that. Right? Like, if we all needed to stay in our little places the rest of our lives, we could. But it would suck. So I think,
theoretically, it would do a lot of bad. Mental health.
You could still breed, right? Like, you could still do the basics we measure animals by. And I always think it's funny that breeding is like, I did really good at keeping it. It bred. Yeah, a lot of animals breed because they're stressed. Like, that doesn't mean that animal is happy, healthy, living its best life, right? Like, there are some snakes that actually, to get them to breed, you stress them out a little. Yeah. Like house snakes. First imported, you throw those together, they breed. Why? They're stressed from the import. A lot of snakes, if you change the enclosure, you throw them back together, they'll breed because they're stressed. They're like, oh, crap, the world's ending. I better make sure there's more of me. So, yeah, I think don't quarantine. Quarantine as an actual keeping practice is fantastic, but in terms of like the analogy, don't quarantine your animals unnecessarily if you don't have to. Don't give them the smallest space. Give them the room, and that's one of the big overarching principles of Beyond the Glass. I hit up Ryan and I was like, hey, here's an idea for a series. And he goes, I've been wanting to do the same thing. I'm like, cool, let's set it up. But the main reason...
Hold on, someone's knocking on the door. Yeah, keep talking. I'm listening.
But the main reason I decided that, hey, yes, this is a great idea, is because I think if people see the wild habitats of their animals, it puts it in a different perspective, right? Like, oh, that gives me an idea. Oh, it was on the crawl. And that's the entire purpose, is I think too often as a community, we say, what are the minimal care requirements? And I hate that phrase. I really hate it. Because if you were to ask someone out and be like, hey, what's the least I can do to go on a date with you? They'd be like, scum, and slap you, and you earned it, because what kind of a question is that? Well, then what kind of a question is minimum care requirements? And granted, you're not taking your snakes out to dinner and fishing for pictures, but it's a good analogy. Because you wouldn't go to a dog breeder and be like, oh, I love this puppy. You think I could keep it in a tiny crate its whole life? The answer is yes, it would live. It just wouldn't be happy. And we like to try to think of these animals as having no joy in their life. And because they have no expressions, we have no way of telling one way or another. But we do know that in the wild, they do a lot more with their time than just sit there. So yeah, that was a big reason Beyond the Glass became a thing, is to show people, like, look, these are animals with really cool natural behavior. Don't say what the least you could do is.
Yeah,
what's the most you can do? Like, let's elevate it. Everyone, let's just take it up a notch. Like, whatever you're doing, do more. And why not, right? If we love these animals, why wouldn't we want to do more?
And I think the reason, it's funny that we're on this talking point. I wasn't going to bring it up, but if you want to talk about it, we can. I was on the phone with my buddy the other day, and I think what it is a lot of people are getting their information on how to keep from breeders, because breeders, what they're trying to do is mass produce, with minimal care requirements, because so what keepers are doing is getting, all this information on how these breeders are keeping and applying it to how they're keeping their smaller collection at home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. There's no denying that reptiles can become a bit of an addiction, and it's a heck of a lot easier to keep animals in a rack than big displays, hands down. And most breeders are using racks because they're going for production. They're going for profit, and you need too much space to do big enclosures profitably, unless you're doing it like a few do, but most don't, because it's too expensive. But I don't, like, to your point, I don't think that's the way the end keeper should be handling it. Not if there's no necessity to. And I think sometimes you can actually have less animals and get more appreciation out of them. And I don't know what it is, because I was in the same place. I had almost 500 snakes at one point. And I don't know if it's like a bragging rights or like, oh, yeah, I've got a huge, great collection. Because honestly, even though I had rad animals, and I didn't have a boring collection, right? I had a lot of snakes that I'm pretty sure no one's ever heard of or ever worked with. A lot of rare African colubrids, a lot of rare Asian colubrids doing well. My feed wasn't just mice. It was all over the place. I'd go to Asian markets for eels and quail eggs. And it was crazy, but I loved it. But did I? Right? Because it became a chore. And I didn't appreciate each individual animal the same way I do now, where I only have a handful of animals. Because now I sit there and observe them. Now I get to watch them. And when they're in racks, you couldn't do that. And I think the argument that needs to be made is they are more entertaining. You're going to get more out of your animals if you give them the more. The more you give them, the more you'll get out of them. Don't go cheap, right? Like, yeah, I get why breeders do it. But if you're the end keeper, what are you doing? Like, go to a zoo, and the animals are way more interesting than they are in a Tupperware. Tupperware is good for broccoli.
I mean, you've been to Michigan. You said that you've been up by Travers. We don't have like a zoo here anymore. So the closest one's the Grand Rapids Zoo. And I was there, well, we took the kids there last summer. And I was going through the reptile exhibit. And their reticulated python had like 20 by 30 foot long enclosure with like 8 feet high with a huge pond, you know.
And when you see it, you're like, that's badass, right?
Yeah, exactly. It just looked, you know, more natural, you know. Definitely would have gave definitely more room to move, more room for the snake to work out, you know, so you don't get a bunch of like fatty deposits in your snake, you know, from just sitting in. But
yeah, I've never seen the scale folds in the wild where they get the folds from sitting in, like you get that in most adult retics, but in the wild they don't have that because they're using their bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've even noticed that with my bigger retic. She's starting to get them scale folds because she's placing her hide inside her enclosure, all curled up somewhere else. I give her a shelf, you know, that goes the length of the cage. It's halfway up, you know, so that way she, at least for now, has some like up and down movement. She can move different places to, you know, regulate her temp. But
oh, that's great. I mean, retics are hard, man. Like that's actually for me. I just didn't have the space to dedicate to them like I'd want, and I think that's like, you know, retics are great snakes. Don't get me wrong. As much as I like all my weird exotic snakes, my file snakes and my aquatic snakes, retics are fairly, they come off as intelligent for Python. They're interactive and they're honestly beautiful, even just in the regular form. And I think if you're going to do like you and try to give them the space and give them thermoregulation, then they can be a rewarding captive. But I think like 90% of the people who buy one on a whim at a herp show are not prepared for that animal. And the end result's probably going to be it's not going to reach adulthood. And I think, you know, as a community, maybe we start going, look, this one should be worth more to keep people from hazard buying it, as I like to call it, right? Like, it's like back in the day, we used to have tons of wild-caught herps come to the herp shows, and people would be buying ringneck snakes for $10 because they're $10. But you're not going to keep that alive very long. Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah, impulse buying something that definitely kind of needs to, you know, come to an end in the hobby. I've always learned to make sure I have my enclosure before I have my snake even. You know what I mean? It's something that I've taken as like a, you know, it's a rule of thumb thing for me.
I don't like that phrase.
Yes. Okay. So that was actually one of your intros into television, was it not?
Yeah, that's kind of a weird story. So I had a friend who no longer speak to because it turned into a well, we'll get to that. I had a friend no longer speak to. Just skip over that part.
Okay.
That was trying to sell a TV show. And the company that was making the show was also doing one of those animal bite shows, but they said be more scientific, less, you know, like boo-hoo, poor me, and more about the science of it. And I was like, okay. And I'd said no. And they offered me a decent amount of money at the time. I was broke and I had a bunch of medical bills. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I did it. And then they're like, hey, we've got a snake on set next weekend. Can you be like our second animal handler? So I was like, sure. So I was second animal handler for a while. Mind you, at the time, my wife was going to college. I was taking courses and I was working a full-time job. They start the guy goes off and makes his own show. So now they don't have any guy to handle anything. And they're calling me all the time. Like, hey, we got a bug on set. And finally, I came into them after working a full shift. And I said, guys, I can't do this and that and that. And then I also had a side mouse business and I was breeding snakes. And they said, okay, how are your computers? I'm like, well, I used to work for a web hosting company. I've done web design. I've done some sound editing. They're like, perfect. Okay, you'll work in the tape department at the production company where you're just digitizing the tapes, putting them in the computer system. And then Fukushima happened and tapes became extinct. The nuclear reactor blew up. That's where all the tape stocks were stored. Tapes went from $100 to $1,000. Everyone stopped using tapes. Everyone went to SD cards. So I moved into being an associate editor. And right after that, luckily, because I'm not fond of editing, the show Speed of Life came up for Discovery Channel. And they offered me associate producer role. So I took the associate producer role, and really the rest is history. From there, I just jumped from show to show, learned different techniques. I worked on a gun show of all things, doing the high-speed camera work for it. So American Guns, a lot of the explosions and stuff were my film work. Honestly, my heart is in wildlife filmmaking, but I've done a little bit of everything. I worked on the pilot and first season of Duck Dynasty. So it was like kind of all over the place and a weird way into it. Really like thumb falls off from a stiletto snake bite. Now I work in TV. Okay. And it's not like I didn't like the idea of working TV. I love the idea. I took video production in high school, but I never thought it was something I'd get into.
Can we talk about the stiletto snake for a second? Sure. I don't think that. Oh, you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can I pause you to talk about the stiletto snake for a second? I don't think a lot of people are familiar, but they actually rear fangs, right? And their fangs actually come out of right behind their mouths, like they come out like the. They're
not technically rear-fanged, actually, because they're not colubrids. They're not Homalopsis, they're not colubrids, they're not Viperidae, which is how I was actually able to legally keep them in California, where you can't keep Elapids or Viperidae, but they're not Elapids, they're not Viperidae, and they're not colubrids. A lot of people kind of think there's boids, Elapids, colubrids, vipers, and that's it, whereas Acrochordus are their own thing, Homalopsis are their own thing, and Acrochordus, try saying that 10 times fast, which is where stiletto snakes fall. They're their own thing. They're not rear fang. The fangs actually start at the front of the mouth, but they cross in their mouth. They have the longest head to fang ratio of any snake, and they're also long glanded. So their venom glands go all the way down their body. So they're not running out of venom anytime soon, and they don't actually bite. What they usually do is they throw a fang out the side of their mouth, and they just hit you with it. So you're not actually getting bit. You're getting kind of poked, and it's an effective poke, and the venom's pretty necrotic and not fun, and there's no anti-venom. But yeah, so I had a group of stiletto snakes. Basically, Brian Fry's like, I want to research them. And he was one of the universities I had wanted to move on to when I thought I was going to do herpetology for a living. Scene changed, didn't do it. And I was like, sure, I can get some of those. Totally legal. I'm in San Bernardino County, so there's no extra restrictions. By the book, like where I'm at, I can have those. I'll get some. And it was actually in packing them carelessly. Anytime you're bit by a venomous snake, it's your fault. The snake's doing what it's doing because it thinks you're trying to kill it. So I got bit by the thing. But I think it's season 2, episode 8. You'll have to fact check me on that. But we actually have a stiletto snake in this current season of Beyond the Glass, and we actually show some of my bite photos and have some cool close-ups. So if you want to learn more about stiletto snakes, that would be one. I mean, you could always go back to, old I was bitten or something, but like honestly, like what we did in Zilla is probably a little better. It's funny, like you grow up and you're like, everyone's like, oh, you weren't I was bitten. I'm like, yeah, because as you mature, you're like, I probably wouldn't have done that in hindsight, but is what it is. It gave me opportunities. But yeah. So stiletto snakes are fascinating. Weird snakes, boring captives, probably the most boring captives. It's like, hey, do you want a pet box of dirt? Oh, you do? I've got a pet for you. Like worse than Sambo's in that. You could have a huge enclosure and all you're going to see is peat with maybe a little hole. And pretty much that bastard's going to wait for something to fall in that hole. You're never going to see it unless you dig it up. And if you dig it up with your hands, you're getting bit because their fangs go past the back of the head. You can't neck them. You're getting bit if you try to pick them up. So yeah, probably not something I would ever want to keep again.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, they're really cool looking snakes. Like you said, they're fascinating. But yeah, it doesn't sound like a fun species.
There are some snakes that are fascinating.
Or try and hold.
Yeah, there's some snakes that are fascinating in the wild, but the captive application isn't there. And they're definitely one of them. Where it's like their natural history, their fang setup, their venom, the fact they're in their own family. So much about them is really unique. And then it turns out they're crap captives. So and they do well, but it's really boring. It's like, here's my deadly dirt. You like my deadly dirt?
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I've never gotten the Sambos either, is because like I want to be able to see my animals, I get that most reptiles are cryptic species. Most reptiles are really cryptic. But still, if you have them, the majority of time, most of them you see, besides like ball pythons.
Yeah, herp room at night. I think not enough people do that, right? Like herp room by day, boring AF. herp room at night stuff is happening. Check it out. Leave the lights off. I think what I see a lot of people do is they throw all the lights on and they go to look at their animals. The animal's like, whoa, daytime. That wasn't expected. I'm out of here. So I actually have a flashlight right by the door. And I walk around with a flashlight and I cover it. And then I just peek in on them with a flashlight. And they're climbing, they're exploring, they're doing things. And it's fun to watch. But if I flip the lights on, everyone just scatters because, you know, I just woke up the sun for no reason. I mean, that's annoying. So, yeah, like take home number 2. Go in your herp room with a flashlight. Keep a flashlight in your herp room and observe the stuff at night. And you'll be surprised. Like, they are more active than we realize, other than maybe, you know, caliber pythons, not active. They don't move ever. If you want a pet that looks like poop, like seriously, like if I had caliber pythons again, I'd buy an old toilet and smash it and then silicone up so there's no spots for them to cut themselves and have like a tipped over toilet as their shelter because they totally look like turds. And that would be perfect. Or maybe I'll get a Barbie toilet. I'm not sure if they make like large Barbie toilets. I haven't looked into Barbie toilets. I'm just like shooting this out here for people's ideas, like, you know, or an outhouse. Like make a miniature outhouse. I'm sure you could do that on balsa wood, blue and white, because, you know, those are the outhouse colors. Every time I see a green or a beige outhouse, I'm like, what are you doing? Outhouses are blue and white. Fire hydrants are red. Outhouses are blue and white. Let's get this right. No more beige outhouses. It's confusing. Keep them blue and white. Put that in your caliber python tank. Boom. Enclosure. Great idea. We said we make sure it's weird. I'm just trying to tracks.
No, dude, you're perfectly fine, man. You're doing awesome. So I wanted to touch a little bit on some of your herping and herp trips, but you had bought a property out in Costa Rica for HCI's, like for conservation and.
But the property in Costa Rica is actually my own property, so that's separate from HCI. And we, you know, try to make that perfectly clear because I don't want people thinking that HCI is like an effort for a bunch of people to buy vacation spots.
Okay. All right.
Our first land effort was in South Africa, and unfortunately, in the last 2 years, land ownership there has become sketchy. So we've got lawyers with ears to the ground, but we've got to wait for things to change a little bit. There is a property in Costa Rica that could potentially get donated to HCI, which has endangered herps on it. So we are pursuing that currently. Because, you know, habitat acquisition for the conservation of reptiles was really what got us started. I was driving through South Africa by the Drakensbergs Mountains at the end of Man vs. Lion, and Devin Mustaine and I were driving around looking for dwarf chameleons, Bradypodium. And we get to this one range, and it's all on fire. And I'm like, what happens if it all burns? It's like a postage stamp. Chameleons die. But the parks, like Kruger or Umfalosi Shushlui or Addo, they're built around your megafauna. Addo for elephants, Shushlui Umfalosi for the black rhino. I said it backwards the first time. Kruger for everything, right? They don't build reserves for a chameleon. Even though you could have a little tiny reserve, a lot of stuff just like gets forgotten. It falls in the cracks because it's not a big charismatic zoo animal. So one of the things HCI wants to do is shed a light on those animals and look at, hey, if this needs land conservation, let's do it. And if anyone watching this is like, hey, I know a spot that has an endangered herp that needs land conservation, hit us up because we are all ears. But the property in Osa is actually my own personal property because I'd like to eventually retire there because I like it there a lot. I've been there close, I don't know how many times. I try to go 4 times a year. This year I haven't been because all foreigners are locked out until June 30th. But that property is eventually to potentially build an eco lodge. It's we're leaving it all virgin rainforest, so we'll be conservation land, but we'll probably roll that into a separate entity. Just, you know, again, no one on HCI takes any payment. No, you know, if we go to a symposium or herp show, we're paying our own plane tickets. We're paying our own hotel. Like 100% of donors' money go into the account for projects. None of it goes to any of us on the board or any of the directors at all. So I always try to be really clear that the Costa Rica property is Pelamis Acres, as I jokingly call it. And the wife calls it Kavu.
Is your personal property.
Yeah, that's just our place to escape.
Okay.
Hopefully go forever. HCI does have land projects in the works. We're just hesitant to announce anything before it's really locked in because so much of this stuff ends up like when I went to Togo for Zilla, we found out that the Togo slippery frog and Nicassus chameleon both occur on the same little plot of land that's also the water source for the whole town. And if it becomes agriculture, it ruins the town's water source, the hospital's water source, and pangolins. So you have 3 endangered species that would be lost. We looked into the price. They're like, we can afford that. Let's buy this waterfall and make a reserve for the slippery frog and the Cassis chameleon, both really endangered rare animals. And it was just one of those things. Like, I almost went to announce it as a new project, and then sure enough, we hit up the university and they're like, that's a reserve. Then we hit up the community and they're like, no, that's this guy's farm. And then we hit up another person and he's like, no, it's for sale. And you're like, okay, let's step back. That's not going to work. So
no one knows who this belongs to at this point.
Conservation is hard. It's really hard. There's so many interests and so many people just trying to get money out of it. And then there's such a weird competitive nature about it. There shouldn't be. I think if we're all working for the same cause, we should just work together. And so we're looking at collaborations as well. So,
which is always nice to see. So Costa Rica, you made a post with some viper species a few days back, and it was about how you had taken pictures of these viper species, and you went back there, and now it's turned nothing but like pasture farmland, and those animals just don't exist there anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's pretty sad. It's sad to see, you know.
Yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking one. It really was. So I was on a trip with Eric and Aaron Briggs, 2 friends of ours, good friends, and we went looking for yellow-bellied sea snakes, Hydrophis platurus, but I like to call them Pelamis because I like the old name. And my whole life they were Pelamis, so I keep calling them that even though I know I'm wrong. And we found actually everything on, I get it backwards on this thing. Everything on this arm was from that day. So we saw baby olive ridley, we saw jellyfish, swimming crabs, pufferfish, where's that? That's there. And then 13 yellow-bellied sea snakes in all of a couple hours. And we also saw spotted eagle rays and whales. So it was an awesome afternoon, really great afternoon. We then head up the road on the way to Ray Morgan's place. I find a lyre snake longer than I am tall, which I'm no Amazon, but it was probably 6.5 feet. It was a good sized lyre snake. And then we hit up Ray Morgan, and Ray's an old friend of mine. He used to live in Orange County. Then he lived in Arnell, and I think he's somewhere in Europe. And they're like, hey, you got a good spot for eyelash vipers? And he's like, yes, my friend actually has a reptile zoo up on Arnell, and he's got a great spot. So we went there, and we were already tired. You know, boats wear you out. It was a long day. It was a turn and burn trip. We landed, we herped, and then we turned back around. A 3-day trip. And that night, after seeing my life for yellow-bellied sea snake and sea turtles mating and baby sea turtle, we just killed it with eyelash vipers. We saw, I want to say 13 or 14 of them in one night in a few hours. We saw parrot snakes. We saw Cybon. We saw Imantodes, multiple species of each. Like it was insane. It was a great night. It was, by the end of the day, it's like, well, was that a 50 snake day? I think that was a 50 snake day. That's awesome. So obviously this is one of my favorite days, if not my favorite day herping ever. It was just like everything was in spades. Everything came to us quickly and everything was beautiful. And Costa Rica is a gorgeous, welcoming country. You know, we also saw toucans, macaws, and whatever that nasty bird is. I'm not good at the sky stuff. But it was an amazing day. So when I'm back there for Dead by Dawn, I'm like, oh, we need a slug to film B-roll. I know a place to find a slug. It's just down the road from here. So I got in my car and head right back to where the eyelash viper should be. And I stopped. And Ray was with me. I'm looking, I'm like, this isn't the spot. And Ray didn't go with us that night, so he didn't know exactly where I was looking. And I kept looking and hiking and hiking and hiking. I'm like, this should be the spot. And he's like, what spot? I'm like, where are we to look for eyelash vipers? And he's like, you should have said something. It's gone. And so I got back in the car and kept driving and driving all the way up until we've changed ranges because the elevation's gone up. And now, you know, there's a different assortment of animals. Nothing. It's all gone. And it was gone for what appeared to just be a couple horses. Like that's all I saw was a few horses and grass. But that's oftentimes the case with tropical beef too. Like here we throw our beef in, you know, BLM land or giant grass pastures. They used to be prairie. And there they have to cut down rainforest. And you don't realize that, like, everything we eat and do takes up space, you know? When people say, hey, there's plenty of room for people, absolutely, if you look at it like square footage you need. But if you look at it ecologically, then you have to look at it like a bear, right? A bear needs a couple square miles to survive. people actually take up several square miles in what we consume. And it was really eye-opening, and it kind of put that thought in your brain, like, man, like our daily choices have an impact somewhere. We just usually don't get a chance to see it. In this case, it was horse pasture, and they're all gone. Like, we saw that many snakes in a couple hours. Imagine how many got plowed down, how many became mulch, and pumas and jaguars and jaguaroni and ocelots and margay and all the other animals that use that rainforest as their habitat are mulch for basically no reason. It's stuff like that. I think it's life experiences like that that make you a little more conservation minded. I didn't grow up in a conservation minded household. I wasn't raised with a conservation mantra whatsoever. Anyone that's a vegetarian was a tree hugger. But you see stuff like that, and even if you're not going to drive a Tesla and eat tofu, you still think about the impact you have. And you still think about like little things you could do to make the world a better place. And not even the world a better place, the world not a worse place. You know what I mean? Like nothing I've done so far has made the world tremendously better, but I've tried to minimize it. And everyone's got it.
You're kind of...
That's good. I was getting soapboxy anyway.
Yeah.
No.
No, you're good. You were just kind of. Yeah. So I didn't know if this is something we could touch on. It's like conservation on a smaller scale. So I also run an outdoor company. We do lawn care, landscaping and stuff. And yesterday we take care of some houses on the Boardman River up near Travers. And so I was weed whacking along the riverside, and up in the distance, I saw the tail of a Nerodia cipodon, like coming out of the water into the grass. So I got excited, I'm like, sweet, accidental herping. That's why I love working outdoors, And then I got closer and I saw a second tail. So I got even more excited. But what had happened is when I got super close, my client ended up using plastic netting along his bank into the river. And it was too late. It was pretty heartbreaking because they were pretty freshly dead, honestly. They must have only been dead for a few hours because they weren't super stinky. But I was trying to see if maybe I could cut them out and free them, but it was just too late at that point. So I brought it up to my client. I'm like, hey man, you should try and use something else, or maybe pull that out for now. This is what I found. I showed him. He said that he didn't even think about it. It didn't cross his mind because he loves seeing his water snakes, when he's like fishing on the river, he watches them all the time. And so he told me yesterday that he was going to pull it out last night. So
that's great. I've seen the same thing in Louisiana, actually. I was filming on this property in Louisiana. They had some of that wildlife netting up. And day one, there was a cottonmouth in there, and they were managed to free her, which was precarious because she was well tangled up, but she was still alive. And then the next day, her and another one were caught back in the netting and dead this time. And we could tell it's her because she had the cuts from the first time. Like, it cut her neck open. And it's like, we spent so much time with, and she was right tight. Like, they were under the scales cutting into her. We managed to get it all off. And it was one of those things like, this is probably a really good way to get bit because a snake doesn't understand that we're trying to help it. But we managed to free her only the next day to come back and she's dead. And that plastic wildlife netting is really, really a terrible thing. Like, it's a bad product. It's like,
I'm not a big fan of it either.
So far, takeaways are.
I told him maybe he should, if he was trying.
Yeah, no. So far, takeaways are
go big.
Make your enclosures as good as you can. Outhouses should be blue, and wildlife netting's bad. We're on a good track so
far. We touched on conservation, and speaking of herp trips, we didn't fully get there, but Komodo Islands. You want to recap a little bit of that?
Sure.
A little bit of that. You took some really stunning pictures, portrait style of Komodo dragons up close. What was that like? being able to be by these just massive, like, ancient lizards.
It's weird, but I'll back up a little bit and say, for people that haven't been to Indonesia, each one of those islands is as unique as an entire country. I would say Bali is closer in cultural feeling to Cambodia than it is Java. And Komodo, there's not very many people on it. Rinca, not much, but Flores, totally different feel than Bali or Java. And so I love Indonesia. Amazing herps there. And of course, one of the most iconic herps in all of Indonesia has to be the Komodo dragon. Like, you get king cobras in Bali and retics, but the Komodo dragon is something special. So we actually hired a ranger to take us out so we can herp at night, because otherwise you're not allowed to. It's a park. But if you're with a ranger, you can. And we found the blue viper and the Komodo dragon. The weird thing about Komodo dragons that most people don't talk about is that people have been giving them food for hundreds of years, maybe even more, because the natives that lived on that island used to kill the deer and leave the entrails and bones and skin for the dragons, anything they didn't eat, because they revered them. And because of that, in the areas where people frequent and now tourists, they're generationally acclimated to people. And you could walk right up to them and slap them if you wanted, and obviously you're not allowed to, but you could totally poke them, because here's this just giant, majestic beast that's like, yeah, what's up? Complete. No, the funny thing is, on Rinca, I also saw a water monitor. Ran like crazy. The Komodo dragons are the only common ones. The water monitor is still like, I'm out of here. But yeah, they are weird. I have heard on the other side of the island where there never were very many people, and there aren't many tourists, they're more antsy around people. But on both Rinca and Komodo, they were chill. Like, they were totally calm. I think of that trip, what's funny is the Komodo dragons were, of course, the big icons and the ones we went there to see. But I had contacted the ranger months before going, hey, what are the chances we could see Acrochordus granulatus? I've looked for them in Java. I didn't find them. I kind of looked for them in Cambodia. I didn't find them. What are the chances here? He's like, I've been a ranger here for 30 years, and I've only seen one. So your chances aren't good. I was like, okay, won't get my hopes up. But I do know there's reports of them around there, so they should be there. We get back to the boat at night, and I'm only telling this story because it's a funny story, and the funny stories are the best stories. And we've seen lots of green vipers. Rinca has a yellow viper. We didn't see it. We only saw the green ones. They're blue on Komodo, but there's also green ones there. These are just color morphs. And we saw Deboya, the basically Russell's viper that's there, and a few other things. Get back, shine the light in the water, and I see a banded snake moving. And I go, Acrochord. And Aziz, the ranger, goes, no, it's Cerberus, dog-faced water snake. It's a brackish water snake, Homalopsis today. I've seen actually 300 of those in the same night, 300 plus, because we stopped counting. A night I was looking for Acrochords. So like those get really dense and common. So that's obviously the first assumption. But the way I'm seeing it move, I've kept Acrochords since 2005. Like, I kind of know the way they move. And I'm sitting there going, no, I think you're wrong. So with all of my crap still in my pockets, which is a huge mistake, I took a few things out, like my wallet, but left my phone in on an accident. I jump into the water. Well, once again, I'm not the tallest dude in the world. I'm like 5'6". It's like chest deep. So now to reach the snake, I'm going to have to hold my breath to grab. And as I'm doing this, I realize this is an ocean bay. Like, it's a common spot to see manta rays. Like, we'd seen manta rays just on the other side of the dock earlier that day. And there's a lot of sea snakes here. Besides the crates, which we'd seen. The crates don't usually bite, but there are other sea snakes that do bite. And like, what if this is a beach sea snake? What if this is something that's just got end medication right now? But I was already chest deep in the water digging around. So I finally feel it, and I grab it, and I pull it up. And it was like, I've never felt more like jubilation, because it was what I wanted it to be, and more like, whew, all right, I'm in the water, so I can just pee myself now, and no one will know it. But I'm sure glad I was right with what that was, because if it was wrong, like, what I mean? That moment you're like, ooh, I wouldn't have done this on the land. I wouldn't have done my feet, just grabbed something. And the second I jumped in the water, by the way, it turned into muck. Like, I couldn't see past. It was just like, right? So I can't see what I'm grabbing for anymore. I can't get a second. I got one fleeting look from the surface. And you know how flashlights are through the surface of water, and it's moving, and it's ocean, so it's refracting. Yeah. Like, I could barely see what I was grabbing. I was like, kind of. And it wasn't until I touched the skin. And then I stood in the water a little bit to finish peeing. And, end of story. Pee my pants. No, not really. We'll leave that up for the audience to decide. Did I pee my pants? Maybe.
There you go. Leave it in the comment section. So
we'll take a poll.
So what's it like trying to capture wildlife on camera? That's one thing I wanted to talk about, because like with more specifically your first episode in Dead by Dawn of like the caves and the monitor.
That was so rad. I actually still need to publish that observation. That was an accident, by the way. So Dead by Dawn was like this idea I've had floating around my head for a long time. Like I am like a lot of herp people, especially a lot of reject people. I have terrible taste in music, no offense. And I still listen to the same kind of crap I listened to in high school. I'll still listen to Rob Zombie if he's in concert because it's fun, right? And I, as an adult, I go to Slipknot shows. You could judge me. I don't blame you. So I always had this idea of like, Rob Zombie's Dead by Dawn was my original idea. And then we realized we need to draw in an audience because, here's the thing. You can make a nature show and nature people are going to watch it. In the UK, everyone watches it. Blue Planet 2 did like 60% share, bigger than our Super Bowl. It was huge there. Here it was like, boop, no one watched it. Like 10 people going, oh, I like the ocean. It has soul. Hey,
we turn it on for our kids.
Yeah,
I watch the ocean too.
You're the choir, right? People who love animals are going to seek out David Attenborough, BBC stuff, which is great, but I don't always want to preach to the choir. I want to reach new eyes, new ears, like share nature with people that wouldn't normally think about. So Dead by Dawn was an effort to reach a new audience. And in such, we paired with Robert Kirkman, Walking Dead company, Skybound, so that we could say, hey, from the creators of Walking Dead, a nature show. And hopefully people channel surf and they stop and they go, is this a horror movie? But it's just a nature show, the same as any other nature show. The music's different and it's all shot at night, but it's just a nature show. And that's something I'm always striving for, is to capture a new audience. So the cave sequence in Dead by Dawn, we wanted to film a big bat fly out. And we went to like 4 caves. One of them was like, this was right when those people got flooded in the Philippines too, like 2 days before. And as we're descending down, you have to rope down. And it's like slippery rocks. And we're like, how are we going to not break every camera we own? And then they're like, yeah, and if it starts raining, which it rains every day, you can get trapped in there because it goes down and then back up, and you need to be in the back up part. We're like, okay, this isn't going to work. It's like a 5-mile hike across like slippery side, and then like a motorcycle ride with like big pelicans on your back, and the motorcycles are all over the place. So we decide that's not going to work, and there weren't that many bats. We go to another cave, not that many bats. This final cave, our local guy's like, you're probably not going to like it because there's like a fence around the front to keep people from going in there. But the fence was way back. We're like, yeah, let's check it out. Devin gets out of the car. He looks and he goes, dude, there's Salvatore in that cave. Salvatore in that cave. What? Really? So we all get out, and lo and behold, there's like a dozen monitors waiting for bats to fall and then swimming in the water and eating them. And what got crazier is like, oh, sick. We're going to break format a little. This episode is going to start in the day, then lead into night. Because every episode of that show is sunsets, chaos happens, sunrises, chaos over. That's the episode between dusk till dawn. It could have been called Dusk Till Dawn. Like, honestly, that's the concept. But just Dead on because Dusk Till Dawn was all taken. And a good movie. We don't want to rip it off. So we're sitting there filming the bat fly out, expecting the monitor action to end. And then it didn't. They kept eating. And we're like, it's night. You guys are supposed to be diurnal. Like, there's a scientific paper published about them eating trash around cities. And I'd see them at the Bali airport active at night because there's lights. And they'll eat the bugs that fall from the lights, and they're just opportunistic. But the fact that they were opportunistically hunting in the wild on bats is actually new science. And I still need to go publish that because that's something significant. But, so to answer your question, sometimes you get lucky. And sometimes you find a cave full of roaches, bed bugs, and bats, and you have to spend 3 days in there hoping you don't die from disease, only to find retics and monitors feeding, and you're just like, bingo, gold mine. And then other times, most of the time, you spend several weeks working 20 hours a day with no days off to get 10 minutes of footage. Dead by Dawn was 3 guys over 8 months. The only day off we got the entire time was because our flight got delayed and we missed the connector and got stuck in Tokyo for like 30 hours. And so logically, what we decided to do, since we had 30 hours free and hadn't slept in months, like this is almost towards the end of the trip, we decided to stay up all night and go drinking, because that seemed like the logical thing, and ate ramen and sushi and did all that. Probably should have taken a nap. But yeah, I mean, that was 8 months of like, when I say 16-hour days, that's undercutting it. It was probably 18-hour days. It was an insane amount of time. Like, you had to first scout the area, make sure the animals were in the area, set up the lights. Obviously, we film at low light, but still, like, try to make sure the animals aren't going to scatter, because that happened often. And then how to make it a story. Because if you watch Dead by Dawn, what you'll see is it's a story of sunrise to sunset, and each scene flows seamlessly into the next, right? As if it all happened in one night. Yeah. But the truth is that happened over a long period of time. So the next challenge is, okay, how do we link from here to there? How do we make these scenes connect? And it's also a big storytelling process. So, but that's kind of nature shooting in general. You go in with a rough idea of what you're going to capture, and then you find something totally different, like the cave, which wasn't originally in our plan at all. The cave was supposed to be like 5 seconds. Like, bats fly out. No, you're in Java, Indonesia. But instead it's like bats fly out and killing spree. This is a whole first act. You know, and an act is like the gaps between commercial breaks. So if you have 5 acts, you have 5 commercial breaks. So yeah, nature shooting is interesting. I think usually in the midst of it, I'm like, why do we do this to ourselves? Sleep is cool. Like, I pay rent. It'd be cool to see my wife isn't really thrilled that I'm gone for 8 months. I'm sure my coral's grown a lot if it's alive. That's why I've installed web cameras and everything. But it's grueling and it's challenging, and in the middle of it, like, I don't think I've ever been like halfway through Shark Week and be like, I'm glad I did this. Like, halfway through a Shark Week, I'm like, why the hell did I sign up for this? Like, the pay's no better than anything else. What am I doing? I could be filming someone putting up curtains and then like having a nice dinner at night in a good hotel room. Instead, like in Java, oh dude, like how gross can we get? Because I don't want to get too grossly graphic, but I can get decently gross.
No, dude. Let loose. I mean,
okay, so my first trip to Java is going to
set up. We're not rated for kids anyways.
Perfect. My first trip to Java and Borneo was for Beyond the Glass Season 1. So this will set up like the level of what's acceptable there and set up the next part. We land in Borneo, famished, haven't eaten. When the plane lands, they warn you, welcome to Indonesia. The penalty for drugs is death. Whoa, okay. Well, glad we didn't bring drugs. You land there, and I tell my buddy Nathan Russo, like, hey man, we need some food. So he takes us to this food stall, and it's like a bunch of wood tables with the food just sitting out, and then like motorcycles going by and dust and water from the street getting on it. I'm like, oh, that's probably not the healthiest, but they reheat it a little bit for you. And I'm like, this seems wasteful. Like, this is a poor country. What happens? Like, they just throw this food out at the end of the day if no one buys it. Why would you cook all of your food ahead of time when you don't know if you're going to sell it all? Well, that's because they don't refrigerate it or put it away or throw it out. It stays there until it's sold. And if it's 3 days later, it's still staying there. But that wasn't the part that was gross. I eat this probably 3-day-old catfish, and it goes through me like that. Like, it's like, okay, where's your restroom? We'll point to the back. It's this cool pier system, and it's all these little wooden bridges over this kind of man-made lake. And then in the very back, these little outhouse stalls. Now you look down in the outhouse, and it's just a hole, right? It's like a circle cutter and a plywood board. Yeah. And you've got to aim. Which, if you've ever felt like the volcano stomach, you realize it's not going to be like this coming out. There's going to be a sideways trajectory, and you're going to ruin your shoes, right? So you have to totally Porky Pig it. You have to take your pants off and your boxers and find a safe place for those out of the blast radius, and your shoes have to go somewhere because, you know, you're going to crap on your ankles is what's going to happen, but at least that's easy to clean. So long story short, and you have to master the non-crom squat position. Long story short, I damaged the bathroom. To wipe, it's a bucket and a cup of water. And you're supposed to splash that at your butthole and hope it gets clean. Newsflash, spoiler alert. You got a dirty butthole after that. So cup splashing. I look down, and it looks like a koi feeding pond. No joke. They're catfish just going to town on this like porridge I made for them. And then it dawned on me. It's an enclosed system. What you eat, you feed to the fish. And when you eat the fish, they've been eating poop. Like, It's the most efficient recycling ever. Like they give you food that makes you go, ugh, and then just back to the fish, and well, cool, we got more fish. Like they don't have to feed the fish.
Wow.
You feed them because the food makes you go. So that was Beyond the Glass season 1, and all of Dead by Dawn was pretty much the same thing. We're in these locations where it's just a hole, and oftentimes the same hole is also the shower. So, you know, it's just a bucket and a cup for the shower and a bucket and a cup for your toilet paper. Like it's a universal plastic cup for both cleaning your butt. It's like right cup there is both toilet paper and like it's an all-purpose utilitarian cup. So, which is kind of gross when you're like cleaning yourself going, I hope there wasn't splashback in this from rubbing everyone's turds on me. But yeah, like a month into trying to aim for a hole, oh man, you're like, why do I do this? And when I say aim for a hole, it's like miniature golfing with a soccer ball. Like you're not, yeah, best of luck. But in the end, when you're done with all that and you've cracked all
here I am like wanting to go out and do like herping trips one day, you know, just travel. And here you are telling me I'm going to miss the luxuries of home.
But here's
the simple luxuries of a toilet and toilet paper.
And safe food, yeah. But here's the thing. I've actually only been sick traveling once.
Yeah,
I mean,
safe food.
But in the end, after you've thoroughly crapped on yourself for a month straight and slept on a lump of a bed and eaten food that makes you sick, when you have a product like a Dead by Dawn, and people tell you, that's the longest I've seen my kids go without looking at their phone, which was a message I got. Or my kids are watching the second episode for the 3rd time now. Or I never knew nature could be so entertaining. And these are the messages I'm getting. Man, I would do it 10 times over. And honestly, even when it's not a show, like the experience is worth it. I think so many people get caught up on I don't want to poop on my feet. Granted, that's a wise thing to say. I agree. I don't enjoy it either. But that life experience is irreplaceable. And to see these animals is irreplaceable. So as a wildlife filmmaker, the impact and effect it can have on people's outlook on animals is the #1 motivating factor. But if I didn't do it for a living, I still do it for fun. Like I went back to Bali and Komodo for fun. That wasn't work. I've been to Cambodia for fun. Colombia for fun. Peru for fun. Brazil for fun. Like, and sometimes conditions are great and sometimes they're crap. But like, I think everyone should try to travel. Like if you think it takes what, $600-700 to get to Bali, and when you're there, hotels are like $20 for a nice hotel. Meals can be as cheap as like $5 a day if you really go cheap. Like, all right, save a little. It's not going to be easy, but get a mileage credit card. Like I use the Amazon or the American Express Delta, and every bill I have goes through that Delta card. That way, when it's time for me to travel for myself, I'm not paying for the flight, and I never pay for the flight because I ran all of my expenses through a mileage credit card. And it's like little things like that that'll give you the opportunity to see these animals in the wild. And when you see them in the wild, it puts them in a whole different light.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, that's one thing. I've always been into herping, been into wildlife. I've always wanted a camera. So recently, a few months back, I finally got myself my first real camera. It's still a crop sensor, but it's a Canon Rebel T7i.
Okay, I used to.
And I've been getting out. Really? Yeah. I honestly love it, man. And I've been taking it out. I only have 2 lenses for it right now, the 18-55 and the 75-300 millimeter. For wildlife photography, I've been using the 75-300 millimeter. Obviously, you still want to give them their distance, so you can actually.
As a camera tip, look into some of the Leoa lenses. They're all manual, full manual, so you're not going to have autofocus. But they make a wide macro that I absolutely love that's only at $400, and it looks phenomenally on the cameras. Like that lens, hands down, buy that, play with it, because it's great for small animals in tight spaces. We used it for Dead by Dawn. I use it a lot for photography. They also make a probe lens, less applicable for photography, great for video. But the Leoa, well, the nice thing about the probe is it's submersible for the first 12 inches. So you can stick it in the water, and it's a wide macro. So like you can literally put it in a crayfish hole and photograph the crayfish. It's got a light at the end, so you don't need the flash up top if you're in a tight space. But the Leoa wide macro, check it out. I don't think you'll regret it. For herpet photography, it's phenomenal. So.
All right, I'll definitely have to check it out, man, because I've been wanting to get macro lens, and I just haven't been able. Like I'm looking, I'm like, I want to buy something like cheap and shitty that I'm gonna regret, because regardless, cheap and shitty is still $150. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So especially when you're talking glass.
Yeah, I wouldn't cheap out on a macro. Like, there's a lot of really cheap macros out there. Like, hey, put these 10 adapters on, and you're gonna look like this. No, it's not. Like, those cheap macro lenses, if you want to know what they're going to look like on your camera, look at a good macro photo, take these 2 fingers, and this is how you're going to see how it's going to look on the cheap lens. Jam them into your eyeballs, then go look at the picture, because that's what it's going to look like through $150. Like seriously, just don't cheap out on macro. It's fuzzy. But Leoa makes affordable mid-range macros. They're actually amazingly sharp as the high-end ones.
And there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. I did message you about. I don't know if you're okay with going there. Your list that you posted like months back, like I think it was like February or March, or it was. Let me pull it up here.
Which list?
The awful and odd stuff that you've swallowed. Only one is alive. That list.
Well, that also comes along with the TV gig a bit. A lot of that list was a single trip I did down the Yukon River in Alaska. And a lot came from that. Some comes from travel. I hate yams and sweet potatoes, but if it's something the locals are eating besides yams or sweet potatoes, I'll usually give it a go. And in Alaska, a lot of it was mandatory. The Athabascan people have like one policy, and that's if someone offers you something, you don't say no. They save all their food for a full year. Their entire cultural mindset is about winter's coming. It's basically Game of Thrones up there, just a frozen boring version. And so they definitely have a mindset that if someone offers you something and they don't live in a land of plenty, especially with, seasonality of it, you never say no. You will upset them to no end. I was at an Athabascan funeral, and they feed you all this stuff. And a lot of the stuff on that list is from that one funeral. And they're like, here's some bear brains, here's some moose balls, here's some whale guts. And you're like, okay, yeah, it's good, kind of. Not really. I feel like I broke in and ate SeaWorld's filters. And then I was stuffed with disgust. And then they hand me a Ziploc bag, right? And mind you, this was in Tanana. I think a jug of orange juice is like $30. Everything's really expensive there. So I also don't want them wasting their money, right? But they then come back with that, that bad bagged iceberg lettuce with like shredded cabbage, purple cabbage, and carrots that like all of our moms bought, like the pre-made salad. But it's just like, you know what I'm talking about. It's like your very basic dinner salad in a bag. Yeah. So they put some of that in there. Front of the bag, no homemade stuff. And then they pour like Eskimo ice cream, which is just rendered fat and berries smashed in it. So it's like eating a mouthful of Crisco. It's disgusting. They stick that in there. And then they put some I think it was black bear stew on top. So now you have like not ice cream, salad, and stew. And then they put like caviar or some local fish in there, and they put some eels in there. And finally I'm like, guys, look at this bag. I'm good, no more. And I almost got kicked out of the life celebration because I said no. So I quickly learned, that was like my second stop. I can't say no matter what they offer me. So a lot of that list, like the raw eel, or they weren't actually eels, they're lamprey, which are disgusting, where they just put them in a jar.
Even worse, man.
Yeah, they catch lamprey, which are just not good looking creatures, right? Like not even a face for it. No. They're gross looking. And they stick them in a jar. Like
they're actually invasive up in our waterways and rivers here. So
well, just get some Athabascans there. They'll eat them. They put them in jars. They screw the lid and they just put it in a shelf somewhere. No salt, no vinegar, nothing. And they leave it slightly in a jar so that the gases can escape. What happens is bacteria gets in there and rots it out and kind of layers it into a parfait. And then eventually, once it's out of nutrients, all your mold bacteria dies off. It takes about a year. So it's kind of cured, but it's not really because there's nothing to preserve it. It's just rotten lamprey and bunches of them in a jar this big. So you get like a yellow layer, which is presumably fat, then like a clear layer, which is like oils, and then like bones are at the bottom. And you have to scoop it out and eat it like a parfait. And the worst part is not only does it taste like a year rotten leech fish thing, but the fat just sticks in your mouth and doesn't come out. And you're like, I need hot water to melt this out of my mouth. Very vile. But if you want to ask me about anything on that list, go for it.
So I personally know the story because I was reading the comments, but like the slew of week-old dead Nerodias mixed with like what was it? I don't know. You had like
yeah,
what was it? Tank go bad.
I know exactly what it was. Yeah, so that one sucked. So you used to be able to keep Nerodia in California. You're not allowed it anymore because Nerodia Cypodon became invasive in Los Angeles County. So this was years ago when you could keep them. I think it was 2012 they legalized all of them, the whole genus. Same with the Ambistroma, can't have any of those. But I had a large 300-gallon Nerodia display tank. It was a multi-species tank. It was like Florida Nerodia. And it was somewhat palidarum where there's a large like water section with goldfish in it. Filter broke while I was gone. No one told me. Hence why everything's automated with webcams now. It keeps coming back to that. The goldfish all died because my roommate kept putting fish in the water after the first ones had died. So it became a slew of dead goldfish where it starts getting foam. I have no clue why no one did anything about this, but apparently a bunch of the Nerodia decided to go in there and also die. I was irate, right? Like I think there was a couple snakes and a whole bunch of dead goldfish. All the other snakes were fine, but two of them had just like, I don't know if they ate rotten fish or drank rotten water or just like decided this stinks in here, I'm going to kill myself. But it was so thoroughly clogged, there was no way to get the water out except with a siphon hose. So I had like a 3-inch siphon hose, which is a huge siphon. It would drain it fast. And I had just gotten back from being on the road for like, I think it was like 2.5 weeks. So I was tired. I hadn't slept in a while. I think it was a Shark Week shoot. And I put the water in and I go to start the siphon. And usually I can feel when it's coming, but I think
hold on. Oh, go for it. Yeah, you were just cutting out.
So basically, I'm exhausted. I mouth siphon this thing. I don't notice the water coming fast enough. And I get a throat chug of it where it's like I can feel the bones going down my throat. And I pull it up and put it back in. But by the time I had just gulped 3-inch tube. It would drain that thing in no time fast. I'm lucky it actually went down the right hole, or my lungs would have been full with Nerodia bones and goldfish bones. All in all, it was a terrible experience, and I was pretty mad about the situation. Mainly because you shouldn't let just stuff die, but it was disgusting. It was also disgusting. So that's that story.
Yeah.
Don't eat your pets.
All right. Yeah, don't eat your pets.
Don't let your pets kill each other. Blue, we're doing good.
we're doing awesome. And then, so one species that I'm really after that is a native to my state, I've been on the search for it for years. I can't find it. And I think I finally pinned down a location where they're known at, but despite going there quite a few times, I still haven't been able to find them. I don't know if it's the right time, wrong time of day, wrong time of year, but I've been like strongly on the hunt for the Eastern Massasauga. And I'm just having no luck finding them. I know that I think they're a species of concern now. I don't think they're fully endangered anymore, but it's just kind of sad because everywhere like around where they're supposed to be is developing, and they're like sticking to like more of the swampy, fieldy areas, and you're just running out of that in their locales because, they're not very expansive over Michigan. There's just few locality populations here and there, So
yeah, I've gone looking for them once in Canada, and they're in peat bog, and managed to not find them. But I think that's happening everywhere, man. Like, we just don't realize that a lot of these small ranging animals, their habitat's not big. hence small ranching. That was intelligent. But I mean, it's so easy to decimate so much of it. The populations become non-functional, and then even the little patches we leave, they're gone. Like land conservation is huge to species conservation. Look, it's great if we're breeding them in a zoo, and I 100% support ex-situ conservation, 100%. But if there's nowhere to put the animals back to, like, then it's kind of
that's when you have a problem, because
like in the end,
it's not like you can.
Like that's it.
I mean, you can throw a fish on land. Yeah, you can throw a fish on land, but it's not going to survive.
Yeah, and these animals that have
You know
small,
what I mean?
they need all of it. You know, you look at what stuff is protected in California, and a lot of it's through the what we call the grapevine, the Central Valley, and it's because it's all farm field. And then that's why your blunt-nosed leopard lizard or your Alameda racer are protected, because, you know, your San Francisco garter snake. Because those things occur in like 4 postage stamp size ranges. And I've been to all of them, and it's like, this is it. This is a puddle. And there's a parking lot right there, and the rest is a city. And it's literally postage stamps. And when animals get down to that point, you get genetic bottlenecking, which is what cheetahs are dealing with right now. You know, cheetahs are doing really bad because they're not genetically diverse anymore. And you get that with all animals. When the population gets really small and the space gets really limited, they get genetic bottlenecking. And now they're prone to diseases and ailments, and other things can creep in. And now you have SFD, which I'm sure will affect the eastern Massasaugas. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues out there that people need to think long and hard about if they like snakes or any animals.
Yeah, it's definitely, because I mean, around here, growing up, I realized very quickly that not too many people were a fan of snakes. And I mean, I can't tell you the numerous times I've been told that we have northern Michigan filled with water moccasins. So, I mean, the people, it's sad because I've even tried educating these people, like, no, these are northern water snakes. I can 100% tell you haven't seen a conmouth up in these waters, you know.
Same thing happens in Indiana.
No, I seen it. It had a triangle head, you know. Like,
my whole family lives in Indiana, and you hear the same thing there, you know, and you're like, no, that's not what it is. It doesn't occur here. But I mean, to the same extent, if you go to the mountains of California, people talk about the timber rattlesnakes, and you're like, nope. You're very far from timber rattlesnake habitat, but everyone thinks of the southern Pacific rattlesnakes in the mountains are timber rattlesnakes. You know, it's widespread in animals. Brown recluse spider, lots of reported brown recluse bites in California. But UCR used to have a reward. I think it was like $10,000 if you brought them a brown recluse found in California, because they don't occur here. You know, unfortunately, that's widespread. And that's where, you know, education will help people appreciate their wildlife, as if they actually know what they have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. I've been doing a lot of like online research trying to pin down eastern Massasaugas around me. And so I pulled up a documentary from the Sleeping Bear Dunes. I don't know if you're familiar with the dunes up here in northern Michigan.
I've heard of
You said that you've been to Traverse City and kind of like the...
Yeah, I've been to Traverse.
All right. Yeah, so...
UP.
All right. Yeah, so they're, you know, just these giant sand dunes, and it has, you know, river. It changes basically habitat quite a few times. You know what I mean? So I've always thought, hey, it looks like it'd be a good place for Massasaugas. So I was doing research, and I found this document on the internet from 1974. You know, that they photocopied and put up there, basically. You know what I mean? And it said they were trying to do conservation in the dunes. And they said something about 35 of Michigan's species lived there. Only one dangerous could possibly live there. And they said it was the timber rattlesnake, aka the eastern Massasauga. And that like blew my mind. I'm like, no, you know, like that's wrong information. I'm like, but yeah, I guess. I've seen people. I had someone in group even on Facebook today by me post a picture of a eastern milk snake and say they saw its tail rattle and it was an eastern Mississauga. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media has actually done some help there. There's a lot of snake ID groups, and a lot of people go there not knowing at all what the animal is. They just type in snake ID with their area. And I think it's really important that people who are herp savvy treat these people coming to us for information with respect and try to not be on the attack. You know, a lot of people be like, hey, I found this snake in my yard over here. Is it poisonous? And then you have 100 people go, no, it's venomous, and it's not venomous, and how dare you, you uneducated fool, that's a bull snake. And it's like, you know what, the people are trying to learn. When people come to you to learn, you've got to you've got to embrace that, because that's the first step. That's the first step for them. You know, once they have that knowledge becomes appreciation. Knowledge evolves from appreciation, or appreciation evolves from knowledge, and from ignorance comes fear, right? So,
and knowledge is also power.
Yeah. So, like, if someone's coming to you for knowledge, they're on their first step of the path towards appreciating wildlife. Don't correct them that it's not a garden snake. Like, you could say, that's a garter snake, whatever species it is, but you don't have to go, garden snake, what is it, trimming your roses? One, no one thinks it's funny. It's old. Okay, stop. It's not funny anymore. And
that's actually the first time I've heard that one.
Oh, dude. Oh, man.
I've heard people call them garden snakes, but I've never heard that joke.
Oh, dude, I see that. Someone's like, I think there's a gardener snake. And then at least 10 people be like, oh, did it plant squash for you? And like 5 of their friends are like, fist bump. Oh, no, stop, dude. A, not funny. I mean, maybe the first. And B, like, this person's genuinely trying to reach out. You can be an animal ambassador right now, or you can be an asshole. Those are 2 choices. And hopefully he chooses to be an animal.
That's actually a really good way to put that, because I don't think I see social media is like a fucking echo chamber, and it's annoying. You know what I mean? Like, you'll constantly see. I try and stay out of politics as much as possible, especially on social media, because if someone doesn't like your opinion, they're going to delete you because they prefer to live in their own, like, little, you know, of not having any incoming knowledge that differs from theirs. They don't want that. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me. We're the only animal species that self-destructs itself. I mean, you know what I mean?
Some people just want to hear their voice echo, right? Some people go on social media and they just want to.
Social media at times drives me nuts.
You know, I think it's a double-edged sword, though. You get a lot of people on there that just want everyone to stroke their ego, you know? Like, they want a crowd to lift them up and they're like, oh, yes, I am the reptile god. Thank you. And then you get people that are genuinely trying to educate, but their opinions are their opinions and don't disagree with them. And then I think you do get a lot of people that are the animal ambassadors. And I think that's where it's really, really, really important. Because I do think we have an opportunity to teach the next generation more directly than we did before. You used to have to write a book or make a TV show. Now you can just directly interact. You don't have to go to a classroom anymore. I mean, I've done a lot of classroom presentations. I'm all for classroom presentations. I'm all for birthday priority presentations. I'm all for any real life experience young people can have with animals. But with that said, social media gives you that on a daily basis. There's such an opportunity there. So yes, you get a lot of turds, especially in the climate of 2020, which has been a crap year. You get a lot of people expressing things like, whoa, you know, there's been a lot of the block button. That button's been used a lot. But even though you get egos and self-endorsed kingpins of the world or whatever, you do get people genuinely trying to help. And you do get people genuinely seeking that help. And that's where the opportunity lies in social media, where it's easy to shun and it's easy, like, there's too many idiots out there. There are. But there are also a lot of people looking to be educated, and you can be that light in the cave. Like, you can be that animal educator and reach out to people and say, hey, you know, I know this spider looks scary, but did you know this jumping spider doesn't bite people and eats flies, and it's going to help your garden? Or, you know, I know you think that killing the gopher snake is a good idea because it's icky, but it's taking care of rodents. And if it moves out, something else can move in. You know, you just have an opportunity. And not just like the human interaction level of like, don't kill snakes. I don't honestly think that is a necessary lesson if they come to a level of appreciation. You know, if you know something about an animal, then you feel slightly empowered in that subject. And when you feel empowered, then you start to appreciate it. That's where most of us start. Right? You know a few things about snakes, and all of a sudden you want to learn more. And all of a sudden people start asking questions, and all of a sudden it's a thing that's your thing, and it's a thing that you appreciate. And if more people were educated and did learn things, I mean, look at sharks, how they've gone from nemesis to so many people love sharks. And it's, you know, that's kind of double-edged Shark Week, really. That's a ratings juggernaut, and people learning a little bit about sharks every single year has made them go, oh, I like sharks. Let's not kill them all. You know, that's a great example. And that's where I think social media does have a positive side. That, and plus, like, for HCI, most of our fundraising is done on Facebook. So there is a very powerful thing there. You know, and there's a downside. It's basically leveled herp societies. A few have managed to do well. Like Ryan McVeigh's herp society does very well up there. But it's just a changing times. You know, it's like with My Business TV, cable ratings are down. So you start pitching the SVODs, the service video on demand, the streaming video on demand, like Netflix or Amazon. You know, the world changes. You adapt to it and see the advantages, and you take those advantages and you make them your advantage. You know, whether it be social media, changing where people learn about animals. You know, you used to have to go to a herp society meeting because there's like the 10 library books at your library if you hit the whole county collection. And, you know, then what, written letter correspondence? How else were you going to learn how to take care of the animal? You weren't. Well, now we've got the internet, so you can correspond with other keepers. And that's where we should embrace it. There's a lot wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of crap on there. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of stuff you're just like, oh, my goodness. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're allowed to breed. That's terrible.
Oh, man.
Like.
So, and it really does give you, I think Facebook has given me a whole new appreciation for animals. Because animals don't try and kill off their own species for the most part. You know what I mean?
Less genocide, more just killing to survive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's their lives may seem simple, but they're not. They're way more complex than led to believe.
I think in general, reptile intelligence is something we're going to be discovering more and more of. You know, the more anecdotal studies that come out, like monitor lizards having memory spans and actually being able to count somewhat, like the more we're actually able to quantify it, the more we're realizing that, yeah, they're actually a heck of a lot smarter than we realized, and their lives, therefore, are more complex than we realized.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's not too many dumb species. I mean, goldfish.
There's a few.
There's a few humans, but
just kidding. Just had something in my throat there. I'm not sure what it was. It was
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just I would love to see more people become educated all across the board on nature. I mean, believe it or not, I'm an avid outdoorsman. I hunt, I fish, you know. But over the past few years, I've been slowly, I guess, coming away from that. I've been trying to, you know, pick up the camera more. I mean, I've always had like a special place in my heart for a lot of species, like reptiles. It's always been there, you know. I see them, you know, no matter what I'm doing, I stop, you know, dead in my tracks. I try and get pictures, whether I have my phone or whatever. I really try and appreciate the animal. You know, like on our mow route yesterday, we were mowing, and one of our clients had a bunch of baby toads all over his yard. And mind you, we had 0 turns and weed whackers. So I was going as slow as I could because, you know, this was our first mow for him, and his grass was 12 inches high. So I was going as slow as I could, kept having to turn the mower off, hop off, move baby toads out of the way. I'm like, man, no one else is doing this, you know?
Whacking, trying not to stroke toads. Got it.
Yeah.
There's an innuendo in there.
But we've been going for like an hour and a half. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on.
I mean, I could keep rambling for hours, and I don't want to do that to everyone. I think, like you mentioned, like HCI, we've been doing that for 5 years now. That's something I'm very passionate about, because having seen the world change in my short lifetime is startling, and I think we should, if you appreciate animals in captivity or in the field, you should want to keep them around. Beyond the Glass season 3 is postponed this year, but it will happen next year.
I'm looking forward to that.
And episode 11 comes out next Thursday, I think. So we only got 2 more left. But that, again, is a passion project, because I want people to see where the animals come from and give them an idea of how they can elevate the care. But I mean, I guess if there's 2 or 3 takeaways, it's number 1, we really need to be thinking of how we can not necessarily better the planet. I'm not saying that, because I don't think we can at this point. But try to return our lease in a good shape for the next generation. And that's someone who's not having kids. Like, I'm not having kids, so I'm doing it for everyone else's next generation, and just the morality of having seen it firsthand myself. And, I'm not going to preach to people what they should do. Just research the issues. Like, I don't eat palm oil. You want to know why? Google it. That's number 1 for me right now in life. Number 2 is with Beyond the Glass. I want us to stop saying minimum care requirements. I want us to start viewing it like you would other pets. And I know a lot of people like to say reptiles aren't pets, but I'm sorry, when you take an animal into captivity against its will,
it's now your pet.
You owe it to that. By definition, it's a pet, and you owe it to that animal to treat it well. And I think as a community, if we could start making a groundswell effort towards that, then some of the attacks the reptile community has gotten from the AR community would fall on deaf ears. Because the truth is, right now, we don't have the best Loctite case to say we treat these animals really well. When PETA's like, oh, you guys treat them like crap. Well, yeah, you could grab 10 keepers, and you're probably going to have hopefully 8 or 9 examples of proper keeping. Maybe. I might be being generous. You can get 2 that are bad. That's all they need. That's all the ammo they need. So, like, if we want the attacks we're facing to stop, we need to be responsible now, and not just responsible for regulations, not just responsible for law changes, not for that reason at all. We're responsible for the basic general principle that if you like the animal, take care of the animal as well as you can, right? Do the best, not the least. So that'd be takeaway number 2. And takeaway number 3, which I think is most important, is that houses should be blue and white. I'm not sure why. I've never had to catch it before, but now I feel strong about it. And W is a stupid letter. Okay, W is a stupid letter. There's a reason for that. But when you think about it, A, B, C, D, those are letters. Yeah. W, that's a full letter, a word followed by a letter. You could spell that. That's not. It should be what? It shouldn't be W. That's a full word and another letter. You just stole the letter U out of the alphabet, stuck it in later, and said 2 of those.
And it looks more like a double V.
Yeah, or double V, double A. What, Siamese V's? Siamese U's? No, it's a unique letter. Give it some respect. Give it the name Wa or Woof. I don't care. Oh, what for all you want. Just, it shouldn't be a word. So, yes, blue and white outhouses and screw W.
Screw W.
Hate that. Dumb letter.
Dumb letter. Someone's mad about W.
Awful letter. The worst.
I'm sure there's like a whole group of people who are trying to get the name W changed.
I just think it's fun to run off on tangents. But no, I mean, and in terms of keeping, yeah. We didn't talk about the smarting your herp space.
Yes. Yeah, do you got time? Maybe you might give us a quick tour of your herp room?
I don't know if the internet's going to hold out.
Okay.
But I can describe it. Yeah, the internet there is pretty bad. I can try. Let me first describe it. That way, if I go back there and it cuts out, that's like whatever. So what I've done, it's become affordable. You can get 2 Wyze is the brand, WYZE smart plugs for like $20 at Home Depot or Amazon. put everything through those. They have timers. You don't have to have just one off, one on. You could have like your fogger going off for 1 minute, 4 times a day. And if your humidity is good, you can just change those rules, right?
Yeah.
My whole herp room is heated by a Dyson heat fan that streams the temperature, the air quality, and the humidity to my phone anywhere in the world. So there's basically a baseline temperature that if there's a power failure, the room's insulated, the power goes out, it's baseline temperature. Then webcams. Why do I have webcams in a herp room? Because I can actually pan them around and check the tanks. And then if I need to throw on a heater, everything's through a heat strip. I just go, okay, the temperature on that tank, and again, I have all of my thermometers running to my phone, seems a little low. And for your true nocturnal animals like Mehelya, their baseline temp, they don't have an individual heat lamp because that'll actually dry them out. But animals that do, I can check and be like, okay, we're turning that heat lamp on. And there's thermostats too, but you can actually just throw on extra things. And then with like the saltwater aquarium, I've got leak alarms. So God forbid something leaks. I don't want my house to burn down. I've had a lot of friends have their houses burned down, and that looks awful. My friend Katya just had her house burned down. Katie had her house burned down. Some people in the herp world have their houses burned down, and that's terrifying to me. I've got a big library. It would go up fast. So I've got leak detectors. And then all of my pumps run through Wi-Fi controls, the loop control system that does the thunder and lightning. And if at any point a leak goes off, I get an alert, and I could click a button, and all the pumps go out in the room. And then I could click another button. Obviously, when the pump goes out, then you don't have circulation in the tank, and that would kill everything. So I keep circulating pumps in the tank off at all times. Their only purpose is if I'm cleaning out the sump or doing work down there, it circulates the water so the water doesn't become stagnant and toxic. So I can, from anywhere in the world, kill switch the main pump from the sump. So if there's a leak happening in the sump, which is usually what happens, it cuts off, hit another button, circulating pump. It's good till I get home. And again, why would I do all this? Well, I travel a lot, right? I don't want to suck up Rhodia again. But also, it's just nice to be able to have that constant contact and that constant monitoring that, like, my wife's very good at taking care of stuff, but it's still nice to be able to monitor anything. And like literally, let's see here.
Yeah, I mean, my long-term goal is to end up doing traveling and creating content,
So like that's a Loop app, and you can't see it very well, but I can like program lights and cleaning mode, fish feeding mode, and then the pumps, and then the Wise app. Like I can turn all the lights on, off, the fog, it's 20-gallon light, the UV sterilizer in the tank. If I get on my webcam and the water's looking a little cloudy in a tank, because I do overstock my aquatic snake tanks, like my Acrochordus, I will put 600 to 700 mollies in there each time because I catch them myself. And so when you're putting 600 fish in a 150-gallon aquarium, even though it's super overfiltered, sometimes you'll have your water quality go off a little bit. If I check the webcam and the water's not looking super clear, I just hit the UV sterilizer button. There's the sterilizer on. Now, I could run the sterilizer all the time, but that's going to get rid of necessary tannins and other things out of the water that I want to leave in there. So that's another like fun thing is like you're running a aquatic tank, keep a sterilizer in there and then have it on demand. Water looks cloudy. I was in Idaho the other day and I actually noticed it was a little cloudy. So I just like, let's turn on UV sterilizer. It's on now. Let me turn on the fogger. I'm actually going to turn the ATV light and we'll go in there. And again, these are things you can do for really cheap. Like it doesn't cost that much.
Yeah, which is awesome because like that's always been one of my concerns. I'm like, well, if I start traveling, who's going to take care of animals,
So yeah, so like this system here, 150 gallons. This readout is the room readout. It goes to my phone, also has humidity, and it tracks a gauge. But then also on the Dyson, I can scroll through this and get my air quality and my temperature. Helps me make sure that this is accurate and that's accurate by having two. Of course, like there's little thermostats everywhere there. As I mentioned, the fogger, it's now on because I hit the button. But if I want to turn it off, there you go, it's off now. All the lights run through the same system. So if I want to come in here and say, hey, night mode, go over the iPad, turn that on night mode. Now it's a blue light. But yeah, so in terms of like this system, let's see, all the components run through that thermostat and then this loop system. The loop system goes to Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi dongle. I don't know if you can see it, it's back there. Circulating pumps UV. The UV is actually running right now. Oh, there's a Acrochord moving around.
Oh. Oh yeah, I can kind of see them. Hold on, let me. I can blow up your screen actually. I think.
Actually, hang on. You know what?
There we go. I gave you the big screen.
Hang on. Let me turn off those lights. Again, iPad, just switch the lights off. That button turns off everything. Oh, and then we'll turn up the lights in here in the tank, because right now it's on sunset mode, and I have it programmed for warmer light during sunset. So we'll manually switch it to daylight. Yep, there we go. Now it's in daylight mode. That's I don't know if you can see her.
Oh yeah, I can kind of see her back there.
Fortunately, my screen's kind of throwing some light of its own. Oh, there she is.
So if you're not good with fish, you probably shouldn't start keeping fully aquatics.
Oh, dude, they're totally the same thing as keeping fish and nothing like keeping snakes. Like, let's turn this master on. Except for fog that goes off. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's see. Actually, I need to give her a drink anyway. So if I can get her out, then you can see her close, and I'll put her. So I basically have this tank here is a brackish tank. So
Yeah.
that's alternate. They can't drink brackish water. They actually wait for it to rain and drink off the water. I used to just fully change the water like 3/4 and then put all RO water back in and then redose the salt. The problem is that it lends to crashing the bacteria in the tank. It's like every third or fourth time I have a bad bacteria problem and crash. Disaster piece. I don't want that. So what I started doing is I have another tank back here. It's a little 20-gallon tank that runs fresh water all the time. When a snake needs a drink, I grab it, I pull it out, I put it there. I keep it on a calendar. I keep track. So basically, if every couple weeks the snakes move from this tank to the drinking tank for a night, it gives them an opportunity to get fresh water without having to disrupt the bacteria cycle that's established in here. And the more established your tank is, the more stable it is. So
All right.
that is why I now switched my system. Come here. Come here. It's okay. You gotta be very gentle with these guys. They don't have a skeleton intended for being. It's okay.
Let me bring her up. There we go. Oh wow, man.
So they don't really love being handled, but I've got to move her to get her some fresh water. So that's my big salt female. So I'm going to put her in the fresh water now. And actually, as I do that, I believe my jobbing's ready to switch back. Let's see. How you doing, Zig? Yeah, you're looking nice. You got a nice. Oh, that's Zag. Okay. I memorize their patterns so I know which is which, and then my wife always gives them weird names. So this is the Javan locality. So you can see the other one was almost all black. This one has nice, clean banding. So the localities definitely have very different looks to them.
Yeah, man. That one's gorgeous.
And the Filipino ones are black and blue. The Indian ones are brown and yellow. They come in a lot of different colors. She's a little better behaved than the salmon. So she's going to go back in the salt tank now. She looks good. You can see she's drank, nice and fat. The salt gland in her chin here, that'll get swollen when they haven't drank a lot. It's completely down, so she's nice and hydrated. She's got a good water weight, so she's going back in the brackish tank.
Huh. Wow, that's...
And then I just need to switch her back to night. Actually, grand finale. Just for shit.
Yeah, I mean, for the grand finale, you might as well share your tanks at night.
Oh, one other detail.
So how much would you say they eat? Like how often do you have to restock that with fish?
So this tank, I think they eat approximately 15 a week. Let's turn up the volume there. And this is just a totally necessary toy. But funny enough, the snakes seem to swim around when it happens. So I think they think it's actually raining, and I feel bad.
I think it's actually raining, and I feel bad, he says. Poor guys.
The cool thing is, between all the different lights, it's you can see there's a strobing thunderstorm too that goes along with it. So there's actually a room strobe and the tank strobe, so you get like a 3D immersive sounds in different parts of the room and the light show on the tank. It's totally unnecessary, but it's really, really kind of dumb. But
I mean, it's super cool. I mean, not too many people, like we were talking about, put that extra thought that, you know, I don't know, not too many people really care enough to really want to put the extra creativity and thought process into their animals. What can I do to make this just so much more like attention grabbing or more enriched for the animal? How would I find myself enjoying this better, more, and not many people put that basic thought process into it instead. So
I'll come in here at night, and if it's thunderstorming, like just sit down and watch it. It's fun to watch them swimming around. And, I've got other things programmed in here for like night mode, night observation, and moonlight. But, I actually have it set where it's just a 40% chance of random weather. And for me, it's like, oh, cool. I can hear it from the other room, and I come in and I just watch the animals do their thing. And, is it dorky? Yeah, it's dorky. I don't care. I enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
You wouldn't mind coming back on sometime in the future, would you? Maybe.
Sure. Just let me know.
I don't know. I'll have to come up with a whole nother list of shit to touch on because you touched on a rather big list. I mean, we talked about a lot. So
cool.
But yeah, we talked about the takeaways and everything, and I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and talking with me. It's really been fun. It's always great to hear someone else's thoughts and opinions on a whole bunch of different subjects, and talk to someone who's been able to go do all this stuff, and
well, I definitely
it's really been great. So I definitely appreciate you coming on tonight.
No, thank you for having me, man. For me, I'm always happy to come on because it's all about just sharing your thoughts in the world. When we're talking about animals, I think I never mind talking about that because there's an intrinsic value to them, right? To the biodiversity that we love. And, I think discussions like this need to be had for people to think about things maybe a little different. Or if they're 100% agreeing, feel like they're not the only ones that think that way. I don't want to just change minds. To a certain extent, you're also going to make people feel like, I've thought that. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to step on toes, or I didn't want to offend anyone, or, whatever it is. Maybe there's people that heard this tonight and are like, you know what? I've been thinking I wanted to do a bigger tank for a long time. I just didn't want to seem non-professional, whatever it is.
Right.
So, thank you. Now I got a bunch of lights to turn off.
Oh, I'm starting to lose you again. But yeah, like you were saying. It's so one more thing I guess I wanted to touch on. I have a Facebook friend. She said that she had a duck, and she said something about one of its tendons snapped. She was taking it to the vet, and if the vet can't fix it, she was wondering if anyone on her friends list, wanted to, cull it for food. She said it's a meat duck, but she bought it as a pet for $2 from Tractor Supply. And she said that she feels dumb for, trying to take it to the vet to save it, And I told her, well, it's really hard to put a monetary value on life, So honestly, she did the thing by trying to take this $2 animal to the vet. You know what I mean?
Dude, I've read biotech for years. I think monetary value on animals is such a strange thing. So much of the value is just placed on how rare it is. Tokay geckos would be so expensive if they were rare. Vine snakes would be astronomical if they were rare. If they weren't as common as they are. And I think that's the downfall of monetary values. Is a monetary value doesn't reflect the value of the animal as a being. You know what I mean? So to me, I would actually, and this is going to be like the least favorite thing I say the whole time, but I wish import reptiles were like starting price of $100, all of them, so that people don't look at a $2 throwaway animal, you know? Because unfortunately, when animals are cheap, people don't respect them as much. Like if they've got money invested, you bet if someone buys a captive bred basin boa, you know, Corrales bait's eye, and they're paying like $2,500 for that thing, it's going to have an amazing tank, right? But the same person buys a vine snake, it's going to have a shoebox. Like, okay, they're both arboreal snakes. They kind of have very similar needs, but they have the money on the bait's eye, so they want to make sure it doesn't die. The vine snake they have $20 on, they're basically saying they don't care if it dies by doing that. And I think monetary value on animals, I commend people when I see them going above and beyond for something not worth money, because I'm like, you get it. You know, I had someone, the Georgia Reptile Society did this reptile show where people brought their animals in, and I was with the Barkers and myself were the judges, and you know, we were judging on health and uniqueness, like a dog show but for reptiles. And what was cool about it was seeing people who really spent time with the animals. One of the people that came up to me had snakes that I bred that they brought in. And they come up to the judging booth and they're like, hey, nice to meet you. I bought these from you. And I was like, wow, they look really good. Can I see the enclosure? And here, vine snakes, giant, huge paludarium. And I was so stoked because it's like, it's not an expensive animal, but that didn't matter. That's how it should be.
Right, exactly. I mean, you should give them the quality of life that you would expect your cat and dog to have, or even yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think we should honestly leave it off on that note, because I feel like if we keep talking, we're just going to keep going and it's going to last another hour. So
that's fair. That's fair.
But all right, man, thank you so much for joining. I'll actually we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, man.
All right, and I hope you have a good night, and I hope you're able to make it to Costa Rica soon. It's been killing you, so.
It's been killing me. Yeah, I'm counting down the days to June 30th, hoping they open it back up. It's been the longest. It's been a long time. So, anyways, thanks so much.
I feel I haven't even been able to make it up to my Massasauga spot yet. So that's
dude, Costa Rica's a cheap flight.
I haven't been able to
Costa Rica's a really cheap flight, so if you ever get a chance, I can promise you won't regret it. It's money well spent. So.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to definitely check it out.
And if everyone ever needs to travel.
But yeah, once again, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
You're the guy for travel tips. Eat
no,
rendered moose fat, fish eyeballs, so good. Top dollar
culinary tips. Maybe right, not culinary. Awesome. Have a good one.
All right, man. We'll see you later. Thanks again. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. It was definitely, if you guys had made it this far, I mean, great. You guys are awesome. Until next time. Peace. I mean, the broadcast here.